That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Before we dive into this conversation, though, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As we inch our way towards the end of the year, there is a lot to process, obviously. How has this year been for you? What are you grateful for? What has been really hard? As all of the emotions come up, this is where therapy is so helpful, like for me. It allows me to process the good and the hard, and we get to feel whatever we need to feel. It is vulnerable work, but it is really necessary work. Now, this would be a great time to consider giving BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online, so it's super convenient and flexible to your schedule. And getting started is so easy. You just fill out a quick questionnaire. Y'all know we'd love a quiz, and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost, so you can make sure you find the right match for you. Discover what you're grateful for with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/thatsoundsfun today, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thatsoundsfun. Today on the show, I get to talk with my friend Lisa Bevere. It has been a while since we've had Lisa on. You may remember her from episode 239. Today, I am just honored to have her back. Lisa is one of those wise, mothering voices that we can all learn from, strong and full of wisdom. And today, we're talking about being empowered women running after God, something Lisa truly exemplifies day in and day out. Her latest book, The Fight for Female, is out now, so you're going to hear all about it and hear why this book was what I think our generation of women really need right now in 2024. So here's my conversation with my friend, Lisa Bevere.
That sounds fun.
Lisa, welcome back to That Sounds Fun.
Oh, I always love joining you. You always create such a rich, different dynamic on conversations.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. That's very kind. Give us an update on how all your people are. Everybody's in Nashville now, the whole fam?
No, we still have one son just hanging out
One
in Colorado.
prodigal.
Just one. He keeps saying, I'm going to move. And then, like you and I both know, like if you find something, you got to pay more money than you wanted for it.
Yeah.
You got to snatch it. You got to jump. But we just had our 9th grandbaby.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I know. So we have 5 grandsons, 4 granddaughters. It was a little girl. Her name is Tatum Alice. And so I have 6 of my 9 down the street. In all truth, one of our little grandsons is in heaven. We had just done the family gender reveal and found out that he had stopped developing, and Jessica went in and got a DNC. And, it was just, we all grieved.
Yes.
We all grieved. And so we named him.
Yeah.
And we look forward to the day we get to be with him. And then they had another little boy, and they named him Arthur. So we have all of our sons are still staying with the A names.
That is well done to them. I think you know this, but our family went through a similar story where my sister lost her son, TJ. And will you talk for a second? I've watched this in our family. It's a really unique grieving for grandparents too. It's a unique spot. Will you talk about the grief of grandparents when babies are lost?
Yeah, well, and I think it's because as a grandparent, you see the length of days. And you have such a awareness of the richness of a life. And it just hits you. And then of course, mothers always question, what did I do wrong? Was it because I lifted this? Is it because I ate that? And it usually has nothing to do with this. And I will say, Annie, I am a firstborn, and my mom lost 3 babies between me and my brother.
Wow.
And I read this book that it was just the most profound book. It's a book called Jesse Found in Heaven. And it was talking about when you lose a child, actually that child has been found in heaven. And when I read it, I actually wept, and I realized that I had a very distinct memory of my mom collapsing on the floor with an ectopic pregnancy, and her telling me to go to one of the neighbors' house, and me turning around and seeing an ambulance come and take my mom away. And so I've learned that even in that loss, there is promise, but there is mourning, and there's never a replacement.
Right.
It's not like, oh, well, they had another baby, so that there's never a replacement, because something in your heart opens up. And so, I celebrate his life, even though he was named.
Yes.
He was a little boy.
Yes.
And he's part of our family, since I'm never going to meet him here, I get to meet him in eternity.
I know. So. I think a lot about my grandmothers in heaven and being with my nephew, TJ. I'm always like, when he was dying, I said, go find my grandmothers. I was like, just thinking, man, there's so many people waiting on these babies to meet them.
And the veil, when you have a death in a family, of course it's tragic, but the veil between earth and heaven thins. Yeah. Like you start to realize, actually, that's our real home. Actually, that's who I really am. Who I am here is not really who I am. I'm more alive there one day than I'll ever be. I know there's a Hillsong song where it says, as we walk from here into eternity. And I feel like there's those that have walked ahead of us. And that's how I see my parents. That's how I see John's parents. And that's also a really weird thing. Like when you are, John and I are now the matriarch, patriarch.
Yeah.
Like there's no parent for us to pick up the phone. There's nobody for us to ask questions. And life becomes so punctuated with urgency and also with the preciousness of moments.
Yeah, I'm even thinking about that as your new book, The Fight for Female. One of the things I noticed when I was reading it is it feels like you feel urgent. It feels like you're like, hey, we have a thing to talk about. Like we have got to, is that a little bit, I see that with you. I see that with Beth Moore. I see that with Lisa Harper, Christine Kane. There's some of y'all that are really stepping into, Rita Springer is another great example. Stacey Eldridge, that y'all are kind of stepping into like, I am here to mother now. Like y'all need to listen. We are the matriarchs and we know some things.
Yeah, no. And when I wrote The Fight for Female, I started to see a problem, and I started to think, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, why do we have a generation of not just daughters, but sons at risk? And it became when I first started writing the book, I found myself angry, but as I finished it, I found myself heartbroken. And as life would happen, Annie, only you could understand this, I turned in the entire manuscript and it disappeared. And so I had to start over with all of my edits, 70 hours of edits, all disappeared. And so I worked my way back from the end of the book, which to me was a rescue and a due back to a dream. And so, I'm going to tell you Annie, I've never experienced this. As soon as I said I was going to write this book, I had a horrible bike accident. And that sounds like a big baby thing, but broke my ribs, got a concussion, broke my toes, lost all the hands, skins, and face, couldn't concentrate, had a woman who was insisting that I was actually her husband, reaching out to my children, accusing, just like, we're just talking about crazy, demonic, weird, losing a manuscript. And there comes a place where the attacks actually punctuate that you're doing something right, not something wrong. Wow. But it helped me do a reset, because right now we have a culture that's really good at saying what is wrong, but not pointing them to the one who makes everything right. Wow. And so like we can go to conservative news and we'll hear everything that's wrong. We can go to progressive news and we'll hear everything that's wrong with the other side, but we are not finding a lot of voice in the middle that's willing to be shot at from both sides. And I do think that's what mothers are willing to do for the sake of their children. I had a moment where I was at a church in San Antonio, Texas, and I'd done a women's meeting, and the matriarch of the church pulls me aside and she said, Lisa, did you ever know Derek Prince? And I said, I knew of him. No, I didn't know him. And she said, well, we hosted him for a women's event, and we drove him back to the hotel. And my husband and I turned to say goodnight to him, and he was weeping.
In the car.
And we
Yeah.
were like, hey, what's wrong? And he said, I see an attack coming against the women. And if the enemy can get the women, he'll get the children. And when I say women, I don't just mean mothers, I mean women. Whether you are single, whether you are married, whether you are young, whether you're old, there is something woven inside of women. Last night, my daughter-in-law Juliana and Sophie came over here,
Yeah.
and I asked them, I said, when you think of female, when you think of women, what are the things? And of course, it's not unique to women, but it is, it's not like women can only be nurturing.
Sure.
But what is that thing that you think of? And we just talked about, wisdom, softening, the softening of the hard things in life, adding color to a world that feels very black and white, finding beauty when we see nothing but ugly, finding kindness and wisdom. And you and I know that women can be the relational connections where, this was years ago, I want to say probably 15 years ago. My husband and another minister got in this like power struggle about something, and they both were like, no, we're not moving. And I remember thinking, this is not going to go well. And I called the wife and I said, hey, let's talk this through. And I wrote a letter to both sides. And I said, listen, we need both of you, and we need both of you to reconcile and understand one another and respect one another's strengths. And I think women have that ability. We see it throughout the Bible. There's women of wisdom and strategy. And I think sometimes we have gone to the lesser, where we think our wisdom and our strategy is found in acting like men. Where there is an intuition, which intuition is from the Latin word intuor. There's an intuition woven into women where we can hear something that sounds right but feels off. And we need to listen to that. Annie, when I was writing this book, I'd had a dream where I saw women being confused and partnering with lies. And the way I described it was actually partnering with the dragon,
dragon.
thinking that the enemy is a friend and that he's a wise counselor. And there was such a moment when I read in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 17, where it says, and then the dragon was enraged with the woman. And you and I have talked, there seems to be this constant undercurrent. Yes, he hates men too, but he was enraged with the woman and went to make war against her children or her offspring. And it says those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And there's been a lot of talk about that being Israel, but Israel right now does not hold to the testimony of Jesus. So at the end of the day, the enemy is after the woman because the woman has this ability to fight with the serpent in a way that the man doesn't.
Wow.
And that's that enmity. That's the ability to see things, hear things. Unless we shut it down, we fight with life, but we also fight for life. So fighting, being pregnant doesn't make you a warrior, but wanting to see something more for the next generation does.
Yeah.
And so I believe this next generation of alphas and millennials and Gen Zs, as much as the enemy has whispered that they're victims, I believe we as women need to explain to them, you're not a victim, you're a threat.
I'm so interested in this because, well, I'm a woman, and
Yes.
I am been very thoughtful recently, listening to some of my girlfriends talking, especially because I'm in my 40s. And so I think I'm middle-aged. So I'm hearing a lot of women younger than me tell me things. I've lived as an adult for 20 plus years now. It does feel like there's some really specific attacks on women from the enemy. Like it feels like he really does not like us in some really unique ways.
Yeah, and I love that you're putting it's from the enemy.
Yeah.
It's not from white patriarchy, it's not from black patriarchy, it's not from Republicans, it is from the enemy. And I found that everything that is coming against women right now is a demonic attack against the revelation of who we really are. And it
Wow.
was so crazy. I mean, again, we see, and you've probably seen this, we see in the book of Genesis, we see the book of beginnings, we see that God is the one who actually told Adam, name everything. Do you see something that is like you, but not like you? And he's like, I don't have any help me. I don't have any other that can stand toe to toe and voice to voice. I don't have that. And God was like, okay, I'm going to awaken a longing. And then he opens up Adam's side. And God is the one who said it's not good for man to be alone. He never said man wasn't good. And so
Wow.
the creation of woman wasn't an afterthought. It was a necessity. And so we see this, we don't know how long they lived in harmony with God. And then we see this enemy come in and be like, oh, I can't have this. I can't have male and female,
Right.
both in their positions of strength, both empowered into the image of God. I can't have that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to question the goodness of God. And I'm going to undermine what God has said. And of course, we all know the fall. And it's interesting that God set something called enmity, which is irreconcilable hostility
Oh, wow.
between the woman and the serpent. And you know, Annie, I travel and ask women, and again, I don't know if I'm intimidating. I don't know if I'm confusing. I don't know what's going on. But I say to the women, when God put enmity between the woman and the serpent, whose side did God put the woman on? And they just look at me. And I say, okay, let's be clear. Serpent bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
God is good. I said, there's only two sides.
Yeah.
And I said, God actually put the woman, he said, between enmity between the woman and the serpent and your seed, which we know is Jesus, and his seed. And
Yes.
so when God put the woman at odds with the serpent, he put the woman on his side, which it goes into the book of the New Testament. We find God overshadowing Mary by the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
and bringing forth the seed independent of a man.
Yes.
And we also see through one man's transgression and through one man's obedience. And yet we have religion saying women are a problem to be controlled, rather than what God says about women, that we're an answer to be embraced.
Yes.
And so we've got this struggle going on with the church silencing the voice of its daughters, and then culture sexualizing what it means to be a woman. And this silenced and sexualized is this tension, and it comes with eating disorders. It comes with misogyny. It comes with sex trafficking. It comes with unhealthy patriarchy, because there is healthy patriarchy, unhealthy matriarchy, because there is healthy. It comes with the division of family, the wrestling between allies instead of the uniting. And, you know, you and I both have men who are friends in our lives. And I have found, and maybe you found this to be different, I have found my male friendships to be less complicated than my female ones.
Yes. That is true.
I wish that wasn't the case,
Yes.
but
Until for
but I
single
have-
people, it's until someone catches feelings, then it gets a little more complicated between the guy and the girl. But the day to day, it is easier to be friends with dudes.
Yes. You know, and I have 4 sons and a husband. And so, you know, I tend to be very direct, because if I hint, my guys are all like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Like, just say it. And so John's like, I have low emotional intelligence. Just tell me what you're saying. But I've learned with women, you almost have to nuance and the confusion and the lack of clarity. And we need to understand that all of this chaos, all of this confusion, it's not the men being a problem, nor is it even the women being a problem. It's a dragon who is saying, oh my gosh, women becoming everything they're created to be. That's a problem to him.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to minimize, or he tries to tell us, Annie, if you want to be powerful as a woman, you need to act like a man.
Right. Right. That's where I struggle so much, Lisa, is I'm like a warrior of a human. I'm,
Yeah.
I lean on the too much versus the not enough side. If I'm going to get accused of something, it's going to be the
I'm
too
with
much
you.
side. And so can you teach me how do we on a day-to-day basis live fully in our divine feminine, live fully in the strength of that without stepping into a role that is not mine?
Yes. Well, and I love that you're saying fully, because your fully can look different than my fully.
Yes.
I mean,
that's
obviously, I'm
good.
married and a mother and a grandmother, but that doesn't mean I'm living my femininity any more fully than you are.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so we can be fully feminine in whatever season that we are in. And yet, I feel like what's happened is there's been a distortion of what it means to be female and present in the image of God. And so I don't believe women have any less of a voice or any less of value. I know that there's a lot of contention about whether women can preach or not. I believe that women can preach. I believe women do preach, whether they're ever in a pulpit or not. I do believe that women should have voice. I believe that God is the one that wove creation to respond to both the sound of the voice of the man and the voice of the woman.
Wow.
You know, this is kind of a silly, but it illustrates it well. My boys, of course, all boys, when they were little, we bought Legos, and I still have them. I mean,
sure.
I have piles of Legos upstairs, all because I want to be the favorite grandmother.
Yes.
But my boys, when they built with their Legos, they built big. They built towers. They had cars. They drove everything around fast. Airplane. It was all about building big. And then John would come home and he would look at the big and he would be like, wow, I really like the height on this. I really like what you've done down here. And then it was a big crash. It was like, watch. And they'd take a car and they would crash something in it. They didn't even necessarily put people in cars.
Right.
But one time, and it was only one time, I was allowed to babysit my friend's daughter. And I watched how she played. Now, she was probably 3. I watched how she played. When my boys are building big, she's building safe. She's actually using people. She's putting people down for naps. She's got people holding hands. People are driving the cars. My boys are watching while she's playing with the girl doll and the boy doll. And
Right.
she knew that she had some kind of power. My boys are like, wait, what's going on here? She made them kiss. And my boys are like, now we have to burn that. I mean, so when women are involved, we build different.
Wow.
And when we only have men, and again, I feel like this has happened in the church. We have a lot of crashing right now where they've built big,
yeah.
but they didn't build safe. And if you don't involve women, you're going to just build big and then it's a big crash. But if you only involve women, you're going to build safe, but you're not going to take territory. So we need both male and female. We need both. And again, it's I watch it with my grandkids. It's woven into them. Like I even my boys, I'm again, my baby's saying, 2 high chairs. One of my sons is like smashing the peas and eating them off the back of his hand while she's picking it up with her fingers and eating it and looking at them like,
Yeah.
you guys are animals. And they're looking at her like you're inefficient. And so, there's a place for both. And I feel like what we've done is say to women, if you want to have value, you act like a man. And then we've said to the men, and this is where it gets controversial. We've said to the men, we don't value your masculinity. We want you to act like women. And so we've got women act like men, men act like women, and we've moved both genders away from their position of strength. And so right now, if I'm a single woman or I'm a stay-home mother, or if I'm a woman out there in the corporate world, what I would want you to do is say, God, what does that entrustment of female look like? Because we need the voice of women right now.
Yes.
We need them in every area of life. We need them in the church. We need them in government. We need them, but we need women who love men and love women, that value the image of God in all of its expressions.
That sounds fun.
Hey friends, just interrupting this conversation to tell you about one of our incredible partners, Daily Look. Listen, if you are needing some new items for your fall or winter wardrobe, let the stylist at Daily Look help you. Of the 3 things I'm wearing, my jeans, my jacket, and my shirt, 2 of them are from Daily Look, you guys. Daily Look is the #1 highest rated premium personal styling service for women, and y'all are going to love it. So I got my box. I loved everything they sent me. Truly, as I told you, I'm wearing 2 pieces right now. I have been like wearing the staple pieces all fall. You just fill out their style quiz, which we love a quiz, and it was so fun. You get your own dedicated personal stylist who curates a box of clothes for you. And this is a real personal stylist, not an AI. So shout out to my girl Esmeralda who picked out this beautiful green jacket for me. You get to pick your ideal price point, tell them if there's anything specific you're looking for, and you get the same stylist every time, which is so cool. You can try up to 12 premium pieces per box, and it's all shipped right to you. It's time to get your own personal stylist with Daily Look. Head to dailylook.com. You'll take your style quiz there and then use the code That Sounds Fun and you'll get 50% off your order. Okay. Again, that's dailylook.com for 50% off, and make sure you use the promo code That Sounds Fun so they know that we sent you. So remember that link, pretty much every other link you could ever hope for, we put in the show notes below. We will also send them to you every Friday in the AFD Weekend Review, which we hope is your favorite email of the week. If you aren't getting that, make sure you sign up for that in the show notes below as well. Okay, now back to our conversation with Lisa.
That sounds fun.
I got an Instagram comment the other day, which we can't live and die off of them, but as you know, and it was from a woman, and she said, by going to college and pursuing a career, you have really thrown away your chance to get married and have children. And she said, it's so sad to me to see you doing that because you'd have been a great mother. And I wish I could tell you that I just laughed it off. I clearly have not laughed it off because I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us for just a minute. There is this, my growing up belief system, whether it was caught or taught, was when you get married and you have kids, like that is the path for a Christian woman. I didn't necessarily have another choice because I graduated college and hadn't gotten married and had to get a job. Like, this isn't the 1800s where I can move back in with my parents and wait for some guy to show up at the door. And so
that's because you're not Italian. But
right. That is true. Italian, it would have been different. Talk to us a little bit about about that, the cultural belief
there's
of
no
the womanhood of
guarantee.
that. Right.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that every woman is going to get married. And that is not the pinnacle of success as a woman. I mean, how many women have gotten married and they thought, oh, this will fulfill every whatever in my life every longing, and only to find out that marriage comes with its own set of problems.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me that even experts have proven that single women and married women die at the same age.
Oh,
but
wow.
Married men live 10 years longer than single men. So when God said it's not good for a man to be alone, I don't think he said it's not good for a woman to be alone.
Wow.
I think he was like, you guys, you'll do fine. But the guys, they're going to need you. So the pinnacle of my life is not a role as wife or even mother, but my pinnacle of my life is not what I do, it's what I leave behind. And I know that people can say, well, children, well, gosh, that sometimes that's not a good, I mean, you have a child and that child makes choices that break your heart. So I hate that has been the Christian messaging. I can think of some of the most powerful women. Mother Teresa never married.
Right.
I was just reading her speech the other night, and she's Queen Elizabeth, never married. And so there's a benefit of completely focused. When Paul said, if you're going to get married, you're going to have to consider the other person and everything. Mm-hmm. But if you are singularly focused on Christ, then you don't have to, you're not going to constantly be pulled. And I get it that there's a lot of women out there that want to get married, that may get married in a season or may not. And you cannot postpone your life.
Right.
Like, here's the thing. God is the one who imparts dignity and value and identity. And my identity is daughter of the Most High. Mm. It is not wife of John Bevere. Mm-hmm. It is not mother of 4 sons. Those are roles. Yes. It is not Christian author. Those are all roles. Anything that you can lose anything that can be taken away or can be yours in one season or not in the next has absolutely nothing to do with your relationship with the living God.
Wow.
And I think too many people assign value to things that change over the course of time. I do not believe that I would be who I am without my husband, because I kind of feel like I need a 24/7 finger on my heart. John will say, "Hey, babe, what'd you think about First Peter today?" And I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I haven't read yet. Okay, I'll get back with you on that." I mean, John is highly disciplined.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like, I'm thinking, and it could be 1:30 and I'm still in my pajamas if I wasn't married to John. But I feel like I needed the refining of marriage. Marriage is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Being a mother is the hardest thing I've ever done. And let's talk about that. Neither of those are necessarily rewarded in our culture.
Right.
Like, you hear women say, "I'm just a mother.
I'm just a mom. I'm just a stay-at-home mom."
I'm just
that
a mom.
makes me
Or, "I'm
crazy
just
when they say
single."
that. Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
so.
or I'm just single.
Yeah.
And again, when you're single, you can be single-minded. And there's things that, I would do if I was single that I can't do married. And again, I'm not saying don't dream. I'm not saying don't hope, but gosh, don't postpone living. Don't look a decade back and say, "Why didn't I do that? Why was I waiting for permission to live fully?" And femininity, again, it can be expressed in motherhood, but it can just be expressed in wisdom and kindness and relational equity. I mean, come on, Annie, thank you that you didn't say, "Well, I can't do a podcast. I don't have a covering. My husband's not covering me. I don't have permission." You said, I see a need, and I'm going to use my voice. And I know, I mean, I get it. So if I get it, you're going to get it. I know you're going to get pushback, because podcasts can be a pulpit, because you're speaking with authority, or you're speaking, and at the end of the day, we stand before God, and I can't say, and you can't say, "Well, somebody didn't like it, so I didn't do it."
Right.
It's going to be between us and God.
Right. Our mutual friend Bianca Olthoff often says, when she's talking about being a woman preacher, she says, "When I get to heaven, if God says that was wrong, I want to say, but aren't you glad I tried so hard? Aren't you glad I went for it?" So I love that.
I would rather make a mistake in faith, than make one in fear.
Than waiting. Yes. Yeah.
Because that's called burying your talent.
Yeah. Wow.
And saying, "I know you're a hard taskmaster. Here's the one talent you gave me."
Yeah.
I mean, at least we're trying to multiply it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's either the fear of the Lord or the fear of man.
Yeah.
And the fear of man is a snare, which means you will, think about it. If you've got your foot trapped in a bear trap, you're just going to circle. You're going to live in a pattern of, today is like yesterday. Yesterday was like 10 years ago. 10 years ago was like 20. I'm just trapped. God's not faithful to me. Well, you know what? You have been entrapped by the fear of man, by the opinions of others, by a inability to risk. And, Annie, I feel like there was two things released during the pandemic. One, of course, was the COVID virus, but I also feel like there was an outbreak of cowardice.
Wow.
And I feel like people shut themselves down. They lost their voice. They were afraid if they said this, it was too much, or this, it was too little. And so they started to self-censor. And self-censoring, when you lose your voice, you lose your first line of defense. And, like if I was attacked in a parking lot, the person would say to me, "Don't scream," which means scream. And so right now, I feel like there's so many women out there. And this is actually why I wrote the book. I felt like women were like, "I know something is wrong, but I don't know how to say it. And I don't know why I should say it. And I don't know if I'm educated enough to say it." And this is the first time I've ever written a book where I said, I'm going to teach Christian women how to interact with culture.
Wow.
Because it's always been, we're in our church world and we're talking about being nice to each other and empowering each other and finding our voice. But this was, for the love of Jesus, a generation of children are lost on the internet highways and byways, and they're being told their formation
Yeah.
is
Discipled by the
mistake.
internet. Right. Right.
Exactly. And we're like, oh, I don't want to say something. Well, you have to. You have to. But how you say it is just as important as what you say. And, like when I sign books, I always try to write like a dedication on the front of it. And because I believe how you read a book, the tone is
Yeah.
just as important as what you
Yes.
read. And so I said, beautiful daughter, though female was created last, she is not least. You began in God's image and were reborn his daughter, because we're all made in the image of God, but only when we're born again do we get our Father's nature. Yet I fear your divine identity and its authority in your life is under assault. An ancient foe, not being single, an ancient foe, not whatever, not because you went to college.
Yeah.
An ancient foe hopes to strip you of this designation. Don't let him. Each day. And this is so important to me. See, I believe that we can go to bed a coward and wake up courageous.
Oh,
And
say more.
Like, yeah, okay. So, all right. Big fan of Riley Gaines.
yeah.
Okay, what did she do? They were like, you got to do this. You got to take second. You don't get to get the trophy. And you see her you see her face in that photo, and she's like complicit. But then something happened, and I don't know what happened, but then something happened. And she said that she was told, if you say anything, you'll never get a job, you'll never get a scholarship, you'll never get this, you'll never get. So she allowed them to shrink her.
Yeah.
But all of us have an intolerance point.
Right.
Where we say, okay, you know what? That just pushed me a little bit too far.
Yep.
And I don't know what her intolerance point was, but she obviously one day said, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if I don't get it's not right. And so she started to use her voice. They'd taken her voice and she took it back. And so each day is an opportunity for us to begin again. And I feel like the other thing is we don't understand the power of a dream. We have found ourselves in a nightmare, and the power of a dream moves us from a nightmare into a dream. And you and I had talked earlier about fasting. So many people are like, I can't hear from God. I can't hear from God. Well, you know what? Every time I have felt like this, I feel like it's God saying, come on, Lisa.
Yes. Come fast.
Put down your phone.
Yeah.
Put aside this and pursue that. Don't fulfill yourself with things that will satiate your physical appetite. I want you to stir up a spiritual appetite. And, Annie, in America, we are a land of abundance of distractions. And when you have an abundance of distractions, you have to intentionally shrink your world to a place of focus.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this in the book. It's such a random, bizarre thing. But when John and I were 24 and 25, we went out with this minister who was always talking about casting out demons. I was scared of him. I thought, he has asked us out to breakfast because he thinks I have a demon. I was like, what? So, I made John pray over me. I was like, if I have any demons, let's just deal with it now. I don't want that at breakfast. So we go out with him, and he tells us, he said, I see the hand of God on the two of you. And at the time, I was working for Eli Lilly. I was not working at a church. I was a cosmetic rep. I had turquoise eyeshadow and blonde hair.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that were like, this is a very mixed signaling for you. But he said all these different things to us. But one of the things he said to us that was astounding is he said, I see a day coming where people's lives will be controlled by a box they hold in their hands. I know. 1984.
Wow.
And John and I thought boxes is what you put presents in.
Right.
But he was talking about this.
Yes.
And he saw we were confused and he was like, no, they're going to be like, my box is telling me to say this and do this and be this. And we're like, don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
Like we think he's senile. But here we go. And in 2020, John and I looked at each other and we said, oh, wow. But here's the beautiful thing. He said, after all of this, there's going to be a revival.
Wow.
And I feel like people, like right now, they've listened to the box.
Yes.
And the boxes made promises. If you just are thinner, if you just are more well-connected, if you have more likes on your Instagram, if you have this, if you're married, if you get divorced. I mean, it's all these, if so-and-so, if,
Yeah.
and it's a portable idol that we have bowed our head towards,
Yeah.
that we have said, okay, I'm going to live in a world I can hold in my hand instead of surrendering to the one who holds the world in his hands.
Yes.
When we say enough, we go to bed an idolater and we put it down and we wake up free.
Wow. Right.
Free to worship the living God.
Yeah.
And so fasting, social media is probably one of the most powerful things. I mean, food is also very important, but, and again, my life was reframed by a fast. Before I married John, God said, I had taken all my excessive drinking, and I said, now that I'm a Christian, I'm not going to drink, but I can eat at every opportunity.
Yeah.
And prairie skirts were godly. And so now I could be in a prairie skirt and look godly. And I outgrew my wedding gown. And I remember getting mad at God, like he had force fed me the Domino's pizza that I ate all by myself,
Right.
and the chocolate chip cookie dough that I microwaved. And he said, your weight and food is an idol to you. Wow. It's what you draw your strength from. Wow. And it's what you give your strength to. If you are thin, you feel like you're worthy of love. If you are thin, you feel like you're in control of your life. And he said, Lisa, I want you to fast. And I thought, wait, you just told me not to diet. Now you're telling me to fast. And he said, a diet changes the way you look, yes, but a fast changes the way you see.
Yes.
And we have a generation that needs eyes to see what God is doing, that
yes,
there is a dragon in the shadows,
yes,
that we need to look past the people. I mean, even when we look at Ephesians, it says we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and powers. So if I can see them, if they have a name,
yeah, right,
they're not my problem.
That's right. If I can reach out and touch them, they are actually not the enemy. That's a great
now,
point, Lisa.
They might be pushed by the enemy.
Sure.
But see, I've been pushed by the enemy.
Right.
So I can have compassion on captives, right?
Yes, someone can tell that story about me on the other side. That's exactly right. Right.
Exactly.
Right, Lisa.
Exactly.
That sounds fun.
Hey friends, just interrupted this conversation one more time to tell you about one of our incredible partners, KiwiCo. I hope you've added KiwiCo to your mini BFF's Christmas list because they've got something new that I think the kids in your life are going to love. KiwiCo is now offering KiwiCo clubs to engage kids on a whole journey of seriously fun learning. So instead of just one KiwiCo crate to work on and learn from, they get to go on these comprehensive learning journeys. It's so cool. Your mini BFFs will learn the fundamentals through hands-on projects that build on each other, and they'll progressively improve their skills with each new project they work on. They're really fun projects too. It's everything from learning to build bows and arrows to engineering their own robot. KiwiCo has 5 different clubs to choose from with unique topics like science, engineering, and art. And it's more than just a crate. KiwiCo clubs members get really great perks like 10% off your orders and free shipping in the US and early access to new crates. So many of my mini BFFs love KiwiCo, but they're all into different things and interests. And KiwiCo has something for everyone. In KiwiCo clubs, my mini BFFs will build these skills over time, learning about everything from like rhythm skills and motor skills for littles to art and design techniques for older kids. It can be hard to figure out creative activities and then have to round up all of the supplies, but KiwiCo does the legwork for you, provides you with everything you need. Tinker, create, and innovate with KiwiCo. Get up to 50% off your first crate at KiwiCo.com, promo code That Sounds Fun. That's up to 50% off your first crate, you guys, at KiwiCo.com, promo code That Sounds Fun. And one more incredible partner I get to tell you about, Our Place. Listen, if you're prepping your menu for Friendsgiving and Thanksgiving, don't forget to think about all the cookware and appliances that you need too. I do my best to be super mindful about what I'm putting in my body, and that includes what I'm cooking with. So many products out there have these forever chemicals in them, and I don't want my Thanksgiving sweet potato casserole to come with a side of toxins. No, thank you. This is why I'm such a fan of Our Place. They have non-toxic cookware and appliances that give us some peace of mind. And not to mention their designs are so cute. There are so many fun colors to choose from. Our Place products are made without Teflon, so you know those forever chemicals aren't making it into your food. And if you're thinking ahead to Christmas gifts, the Our Place Wonder Oven is the most adorable air fryer and toaster oven, and I think you probably need one. Go to FromOurPlace.com, enter our code TSF, like that sounds fun, at checkout, and you're going to get 10% off site-wide. That's FromOurPlace.com, and the code again is TSF. Our Place offers a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns. And now back to finish up our conversation with Lisa.
That sounds fun.
When I think about, I feel like I blow this trumpet all the time because I feel like if there's any spiritual discipline that the enemy has tried to steal specifically from women, it feels like fasting. Like there was a time where I was looking for a book on 40 days, on fasting for 40 days. And I was asking around and it was all dudes in my life. Anecdotally, it was only men who had done it. And then when I was looking for resources, they were only for men. And I was like, hold on, there's something we're missing here. So will you talk a little bit about what is the uniqueness of women in spiritual power? Like in our warfare prayer, I mean, I know that dudes intercede, but what I hear yelling in prayer rooms is women. And so talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, and there's something that a woman can do that a man really can't do, and that's wail. And
Wow.
I remember the first time, and I hope this isn't offensive to you, but the first time I saw the documentary, The Silent Scream. Now, it was showing so it was a window into a womb. It was a sonogram during an abortion. And they showed the baby running from the the instrument that was getting ready to cut it up, and the baby is screaming in utero. The preborn baby is screaming, and the mother actually, when they actually breached the cervix, the mother yelled, and I watched all this, and Annie, something inside of me, I just started to wail. And I was like, who's making that sound? Oh, I'm making that sound.
Wow.
And it's when the natural and the spirit intersect. And women know how to carry things in the spirit differently than men carry things in the spirit. It's not an accident that God told the woman at the well that Jesus was like, I'm the Messiah. Right. And what did she do? She dropped all of it. And she ran into the city and she said, okay, listen, come meet a man who told me everything about myself. Right. And what I think people don't understand about her, it wasn't that she had divorced 5 husbands. It's that she had been rejected over and over and over again. But she was a deep well, living a shallow life. And I feel like so many women right now, they're deep wells, living shallow lives, whether that life is success as people measure it. I mean, at the end of the day, my highest calling is to know him and to be transformed into his image, to every single day live in a way where I am denying myself, taking up my cross and following him. That's just Christianity 101. Yep. And then we think, well, how do we do that? Well, he's our pattern. And everywhere Jesus went, he brought good news. Everywhere he went, he set the captives free. He didn't say you're captive. He set the captives free. He didn't just stop with that. And there's and I've gotten a lot of pushback on this, but I feel like I can say this on your podcast. Yeah. There's some conversations that we need to understand, that we need to be able to say. And I'd had a conversation with a beautiful, influential woman. And she said, if you and I are sitting here and Jesus is sitting here with us, and my friend who believes she's born in the wrong body was sitting, what would he say to her? Yeah. And I remember it was like 6:30 in the morning. And I wanted to say, he would say, get coffee. I was like, what are we doing talking about this so early? And I had to go, Holy Spirit, what do I say? And I heard first he would say, I love you. Yes. Because the love of God is never in question. Right. There is no darkness, there is no mud, there is no mire, there is no sin that can separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus. We know that. So first he would say, I love you. Then he would say, you're not a mistake. All right. But third, he would say, and this is where people get mad at me, he would say, I understand. And people are like, how could he understand? How could he understand? Was Jesus transgendered? No, but he was a high priest. Hebrews 4 tells us that is touched with our struggles.
Yes.
And then Philippians 2 tells us that Jesus, who did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he took on the nature of a servant, that he emptied himself of his divine identity and set aside his divine form, and he became us so we could become him. So of course we're uncomfortable in our bodies. I mean, you're in your 40s. I'm in my 60s. Oh my gosh, Annie, every single day is an adventure. I'm like, what in the world?
This is not the body I knew. This is not the body I knew 20 years ago.
I did not have that brown spot.
Yes.
Like, what happened? Like, what just happened? So what's happening outwardly? I'm perishing. But inwardly, I am longing for eternity. And so we all know we're created for more, but it's not more husbands. It's not more stuff. It's not more whatever accolades of people. It is an eternal more. And so we're going to have a whole generation of LGBTQ people that have been promised wholeness, and women who heard that if they got married, that whatever, they've been promised wholeness outside of Christ. They're going to run to Christ, and we need to be ready to understand that he loves and that he sees the uncomfortableness. Because how uncomfortable would it be to be Jesus, having been the Son of God, to put on our human flesh?
And so for 33 years, that is a long time. That is a long time.
And I understand that he gets us.
Yeah.
But he actually became us.
Yes.
So we could put on Christ. And I don't think we understand that exchange and how profound it was. And when we actually try to grasp at equality with God and say, I'm going to put on the costume of woman if I'm a man, or of man if I'm a woman. And God is like, I get the frailties and the challenges. I get the struggle. But let me just tell you that your longing for more is me.
Yeah.
And
that's
fasting,
true in my life too.
Fasting redirects that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what you said, it helps us to see and to see clearly. I'm trying to think about our friends as they're hearing this and they're like, okay, here's my next thing to do. So reading the book, reading The Fight for Female will help. But will you also put some words around like describe divine femininity so we can start like talking with my counselor and I are having this conversation. I'm telling you, this is what we are talking about. We are talking about what does it look like to be a strong, feminine woman of God? Like, how do I hold all that at the same time? So give us some language around what is divine femininity? What is that? Because I also think sometimes that language is used by New Age
goddesses.
Outside of the faith, but it's actually a really beautiful, true thing for us as believers.
Yeah. Well, I believe it's a divine identity because it was divinely given. It wasn't happenstance. It wasn't like, oh, wait, I meant to make her a boy. Oh, by accident, I made her a girl. So, it's divinely entrusted.
Yeah.
But I love that it's a spectrum. So I love that femininity can be a tomboy.
Yeah.
And femininity can be frilly, girly, pink.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'll never be that.
Yeah.
And it's sad that to me right now, if I was born in junior high and they would have come to me and said, well, you're probably a boy. You probably were the wrong body. But see, God was like, nope, she's going to have 4 sons and her husband's going to play tennis, but she's going to hunt and ski and surf. So we need somebody that's on the other side of this to balance out that. And so it's a spectrum. You can be feminine and a warrior. We see that in Jael. We see that in Deborah. And we see that in Mary, a young girl saying, be it unto me according to your word. We see it in Elizabeth. We see it in an older woman. We see femininity as whoever we are. We have this ability, whether we're white or black or tall or thin or whatever it is, we can express femininity in our season as a woman. And women, here's the thing. When God said in Ephesians, and I love how the Message says, God is strong and he wants you strong. Okay.
Yes,
So
I love that
strong
too.
is not wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, and people need to know that strong is not wrong. It's not wrong for women to be strong, and wrong isn't strong. Being angry and mean, we know that the wrath of man never works the righteous purposes of God. That's also goes for women. So you can be strong without being physical. You can be strong in the spirit. And again, that is what the enemy is so afraid of, that we carry life in the spirit. We carry life. We open our mouth with wisdom and kindness.
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes I open my mouth with things that are very different than wisdom and kindness, but God's like, let's open it with that. And that we actually, and I love, it says she considers the fields and buys it. It doesn't say she asked her husband permission. So I think God's like, you have a brain. So femininity has a brain. Femininity can be entrepreneurial. Femininity can flourish in wherever they are, whatever season they are in. I'm not any less feminine because I've been through menopause. Mm-hmm. So, because I can't reproduce, that doesn't make me less feminine.
Right.
But I also think that it's not a costume. And I think we've gone to the lesser instead of the more. Femininity is not seduction.
Right.
Femininity is beauty. Mm-hmm. Femininity is intimacy. It is not lust. Femininity is the embrace. It is not the demeaning of either male or female. So we have to take back, the protection of our daughters. I think it's feminine to play in sports.
Yeah.
I just think it's wrong for men to be in women's sports. Yeah. So I think that we have this freedom of range of movement and opportunity that we have as a God gift. There's nothing that says, that you can't podcast because you're a woman.
Right.
There's nothing that says I can't preach. Matter of fact, when I was reading the book of Acts, it talks about how Peter and John, how they, were taken captive. They were like, hey, we forbid you to preach and teach in the name of Jesus. And it said, they called him back. And when I read that, I had such a sense that the Holy Spirit was saying, there's a generation of my daughters who I have commissioned to go and preach in my name. And religious leaders have called them back and forbidden them. And he said, they've got to say to these religious leaders what Peter and John said, do we obey God or do we obey you? At the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
it's such a gift.
I don't know if I
in such a
completely
season.
answered your question, but.
Listen, here's the thing. This is such a, yes, you did. And this is the start of a conversation we all need to be having with our counselors and with our mentors and with our friends and with our mothers and with our sisters.
And with our neighbors.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't, and I want to close with this. We can read.
Yeah. We
can fast. We can pray. But I had this conversation with this brilliant man who is an expert in totalitarianism. He's Belgian and he is a statistician, and he was talking about what was going on in his nation. He was talking about how we were on the precipice of the cliff of falling into totalitarianism. And I'm like sitting there. I've got a pregnant daughter-in-law next to me. I'm like, for the love of Jesus, what do we do?
Yeah.
And he said, well, violence and protest justify totalitarianism. And I said, okay, what do we do? And you know what he said, Annie? He said, constant, courageous, clear conversations.
Wow. Constant, courageous,
even what we're
clear
doing right now.
Yep.
And then, and after I hung up with him, and I didn't get to write this in the book, but I was hoping that is what the book would spark.
Yeah.
After I hung up with him, I thought, how did the church grow in the book of Acts? They went from house to house. And they talked to one another about the teaching of the apostles. See, what happened during COVID is we lost the ability to have conversations. We are sitting on the toilet arguing with strangers instead of engaging with people, hearing what they're saying, and giving them a chance to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, that's really good. Constant, courageous, clear conversation. That is what we get to do. Lisa, thank you for making time to do this. I'm so grateful.
Oh, it's been a delight.
You're
I
the
love
best.
you. We'll have
I
to
love
do
you
lunch
too,
again
friend.
soon.
Oh, you guys, isn't she great? Man, I'm telling you, this is just the start of these conversations. I know we could go so much deeper into so many areas that Lisa and I talked about. And you can agree and disagree and have thoughts and questions. Take this episode, share it with somebody, and then say, can we sit down and talk about this? Send it to your mentor. Send it to the person discipling you. Send it to your therapist. Send it to your book club, your group of friends. And it gives you a starting place to have this conversation about, like, what does it look like to be a woman after God's heart in 2024 and going into 2025. This is a great starting point. And make sure you get your copy of her book, The Fight for Female. Go follow Lisa on social media as well. If you aren't already, tell her thank you so much for being on the show. And if you enjoy this episode, we got a lot of Beveres we've had on the show. We got them a lot back there. So you can go listen to episode 461 with Lisa's son, Addison Bevere, and his wife, Jules, who we love. Or episode 258 with her husband, John. And Lisa has been on before as well. If you have any questions from this episode, drop them in the Q&A box on your Spotify app. If you're a Spotify listener, that's where I listen. Or send them to us on Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast. And we'll try to answer them there. And make sure you are following That Sounds Fun Podcast. There's 20,000 of y'all there already. But listen, everybody getting over there is going to be real fun when we go into 2025. If you need anything else from me, you know I'm embarrassingly easy to find. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places you may need me. Yes, even TikTok, Annie F. Downs, TSF. That's how you can find us on TikTok and on YouTube. We're just all the places. Anywhere you need us, that's how you can find us. I think that's it for me today, friends. Go out or stay home. Do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Man, today what sounds fun to me is a weekend at home in Nashville. I cannot wait. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. I cannot wait to meet this guy and have a conversation. Strahan Coleman. Y'all, let's get ready. We'll see you on Monday.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Check 1, 2 on the microphone. Annie F. Downs in your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry. When it's dark out, she's a light. When you're down, get you feeling right. Oh man, that sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds